I want to talk about Kyle Hendricks. Just another really good start. He was locating really well on the edges of the strike zone today. Looked really good. And he's come back and been way better than I think any of us would have hoped, just given how he was last year, the injury he was dealing with, and knowing what he was coming back from. For him to look the way he has so far in the 2023 season, especially as the Cubs are trying to get Jameson Taillon back on track. Hayden Wesneski, obviously, changing roles and not stellar in his first opportunity in the rotation. Hard to, with where they are in this season, hard to overstate just how important Kyle Hendricks has been since coming back.
Yeah. So we got I'm going to throw stats up there. So this is Kyle Hendricks after today's start. 3-2, 34 2/3 innings pitched, 2.60 ERA, 195 average against, and a sub-1, exactly 0.98 WHIP. Yeah, Kyle Hendricks has been he's been good. He's been better than, not that I want to say better than like expected or anything like that, but like, I'm going to say that because you didn't know what to expect, right? Like it was a long time that Kyle Hendricks didn't pitch. It was a long time that he, had, the capsular tear in his shoulder. For a guy that's 30-some years old, you'd never really like to hear the word shoulder when it comes to an injury. And they went on this long, extended rehab process that involved different things, programs to kind of increase some of his velocity, involved, adjusting or tweaking his delivery to try to hopefully, stop that, whatever injury came from his previous delivery or however exactly it went, like to try to minimize any future type of ailments in that shoulder by adjusting his delivery. So they did all this stuff in, 11 months? It was a long time for Kyle Hendricks to be out. Again, a guy that's 33, I want to say, years old. Like, you didn't really know if Kyle Hendricks was going to come back and be effective. Like, you just couldn't predict that just because of how long he'd been out. Like, we know that Kyle Hendricks at his best is a good pitcher. You just didn't know if they could get that based on, really honestly the last couple seasons and the just extended time away. So I know we've talked to like Jed and David Ross about that and just about the long recovery and if there were, any concerns or worries that basically what I said, like, did they ever have concerns that he would get back to that type of pitcher? And Jed kind of said, like, yeah, like just in that circumstance, there are going to be some level of concern just because, again, you don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. But they went through that big process. They convinced him that was the right thing to do. They convinced themselves it was the right thing to do. They went through the whole process, and it looks like he's come out on the other side back to a semblance of the Kyle Hendricks that was so good, 2020? Like, he was a really good pitcher in that year, and since then, it's been kind of a downhill slide for him. So he's come out. It's only 6 starts, but he's come out and looked pretty good a majority of it. I think that's 5 pretty good starts now. I think the first one wasn't as good, but, like, he's come out. He's pitched really well. Today he had, 31% of his pitches were either called strikes or whiffs, an average exit velocity of 82.6 miles per hour on 19 balls in play. So it's like, those are like Kyle Hendricks numbers,
vintage
right?
kind of start.
That's
absolutely.
It's not the best you could see from Kyle Hendricks, but it's like, those are the numbers Kyle Hendricks puts up. And so, yeah, it looks like the process that they went, as long as it took, it's showing results right now. And I think that's all you could have really hoped for Kyle Hendricks out of what he had to go through. And
you said, it's only been a handful of starts, but I mentioned, Taillon, Wesneski, but I think the timing in particular of Kyle coming back and pitching like this, Justin Seal is obviously back now. He's been back. He's going to start in London. But for Kyle to come in and do that while Justin was on the injured list and we weren't really sure like what the vibe was there, just really important in getting the Cubs on this stretch and keeping them in the win column as they're trying to keep up with whomever may be in first place in the NL Central on a given day. Hopefully soon it's the Cubs, though.
Yeah. And one more thing is, I think maybe a little overlooked, with Kyle coming back, like we talked about in the pregame show, like now they have their ideal rotation of Steele, Stroman, Taillon, Smiley, and Hendricks. And I know, like, we all know that Taillon has to be better overall, more consistent. But that's their ideal rotation. And now with Kyle back, guys like Hayden Wesneski, Javier Assad, Caleb Killian in the mind, like whoever is that depth, They don't have to like rely on any one of them to come in and like be that fifth star, especially if it's a different season and they're not really, like if it's 2022 and they're not really in a place where they're going to compete. Like maybe they can afford to let those guys ride it out, go through the highs and lows that rookie pitchers or young pitchers go through. But this is a year they're talking about competing and they're winning games right now. And now with Kyle Hendricks pitching like this, and if Tyone picks it up, they don't need to have every fifth day a really young or / rookie pitcher go out and don't know what they're going to get from him. So like, Tyone needs to pitch better. Smiley, Steele, and Stroman do what they're doing, and Kyle Hendricks kind of has to pitch like this, like how he's been pitching the last 5 games. But that's if Tyone can pick it up, then you have a rotation where you feel confident actually every time out that they're going to at least give you a chance to win. And I think just not having to rely on young pitchers in a season where you are trying to compete is a positive that stems from Kyle Hendricks coming back and pitching like this.